Why be Catholic? Well, when we look at the Catholic Church, it's been a decisive spiritual force throughout a great part of history. And it's got so much behind it, in a sense. But when I think of Catholicism, I think of it more in terms of an invitation, a daily invitation. I mean, our God does not force God's self upon us in the sense that we live in the freedom to follow Him. And so Catholicism is a daily invitation for us to take up our cross and to follow Him. And sometimes we stray. I myself, at various points in my life, I walked away from the church in a sense. I backed off, mostly through my late teenage years and early 20s. But then again, in my mid-20s, there was a time where I pulled back. But the wonderful thing about our faith is that invitation is always there, and we can always come back. And so it's an invitation. It's a way of life. It's taking up our cross and following our Savior. Do you have to be baptized to be Catholic? Well, there's a line in the Jewish religious books called the Talmud, which says, where God is speaking to the people, and He basically says, "Come to me as much as you can, or as far as you can, and I'll meet you where you're at." And that line has always stayed with me, and I always kind of preach. We come as we are. Yes, I mean ultimately, our baptisms are that moment which makes explicit our desire to say yes to that invitation and to follow Christ. And as Catholics, we often baptize infants, and this is a very normal practice in our faith. And it's the parents, supported by the godparents, who bring the child to the church for baptism. And I always say, as parents, you're going to make all kinds of decisions for your children, as you should. I mean, that's a very important part of being a parent. You're going to decide what your child's going to wear, especially when they're small. You're going to decide what kind of foods they're going to eat, what kind of programs they're going to watch on TV, and it goes on and on. And so I think it's very normal and natural for parents who are people of faith to say, I want my child, my son or my daughter, to know Christ. And so they bring the child to the church through the waters of baptism, and that begins this journey of discipleship. And it is the promise and the role of the parents, supported by the church, to raise their child in the faith to the best of their ability. And, as I said before, ultimately our faith is an invitation, but that gift of baptism has been given, it has been received. And there comes a point, hopefully in our own lives, where we say yes to that invitation and we follow Christ.